Been a long journey getting to this day, October 16th, 2025, but we are here in the English countryside about an hour and a half outside of London, and the verdict is in. We've been quiet, listening to liars continue to lie and keeping to ourselves, living and loving our life, as we said, leaving everything in God's hands and letting our lawyer do the talking. But according to the courts, trying to ruin my name and trying to bring harm to my family in a book filled with lies equals $8.8 million.
Can you believe Brian McKnight actually went online gloating about his lawsuit win like he'd just conquered the world? I mean, the man didn't even try to hide it. Chest puffed, smug tone, victory lighting, the whole thing. He proudly declared that the liars, meaning his ex-wife Julie, now owed him millions. Millions! And not just that, he filmed his little victory speech on his late son Nico's birthday. The timing? Chilling. The arrogance? Off the charts. But what makes this even wilder is that while Brian was patting himself on the back, Julie was allegedly planning her next move, and insiders say he's nowhere near ready for what's coming. Because at this point, the internet's done with Brian McKnight, fully. So let's unpack the madness. Brian McKnight, once a respected R&B legend, is now trending for all the wrong reasons. He hopped online from somewhere in the English countryside, looking way too pleased with himself. It's been a long journey getting to this day, he began, acting like he just survived a war. We've been quiet, listening to liars continue to lie.
It's been a long journey getting to this day, October 16th, 2025, but we are here in the English countryside about an hour and a half outside of London, and the verdict is in. We've been quiet, listening to liars continue to lie and keeping to ourselves, living and loving our life, as we said, leaving everything in God's hands and letting our lawyer do the talking. But according to the courts, trying to ruin my name and trying to bring harm to my family in a book filled with lies equals $8.8 million. And this is just the beginning. Because
keeping to ourselves, leaving it all in God's hands, and letting our lawyer do the talking. Then he dropped the bomb. But according to the courts, trying to ruin my name and harm my family with lies equals $8.8 million. His tone, victorious, like a man delivering divine justice. But the internet wasn't impressed. They were disgusted. Because yes, that speech happened on Nico's birthday, his deceased son. The same son he's been accused of erasing from memory and disowning while alive. That alone made people sick. The optics couldn't have been worse. A man celebrating money while the world remembered the son he allegedly abandoned. And here's where it gets twisted. That verdict he was bragging about, it wasn't even finalized yet. Julie reportedly hadn't even filed her court response. She'd missed a hearing connected to her book, Mama Bear, Beautifully Blended, a memoir that paints Brian as an emotionally abusive husband and neglectful father. Because she didn't show up, Brian requested a default judgment, but the court hadn't officially approved it. Meaning, technically, his win was premature. But that didn't stop him from celebrating like he'd already cashed the check. He even doubled down by playing a voicemail from Julie, allegedly about their son Nico. "Do not text Nico again. Do not call Nico again," she said. "Leilani, if you're checking these messages, that goes for you too. I'm serious." Brian used that clip as supposed proof that Julie blocked him from contacting Nico. Then, as if mocking the whole situation, he smiled, hopping on his toes and said, "This is just the beginning," like he was teasing a sequel to his own drama. Fans were horrified. The timing, the tone, the self-righteousness, it all screamed cruelty. Because this wasn't some random date. It was Nico's birthday, the son he's accused of abandoning. The same son who had publicly begged for his father's love before passing away. People couldn't believe the audacity. Now, to understand how we got here, we have to rewind a bit. After Nico's passing, Brian posted a so-called tribute. But instead of mourning his son, he used that post to call out family members, including Nico's mother Julie and his brother Claude, for supposedly turning the tragedy into a circus. He accused Julie of refusing his help and blocking him from providing top medical care. He framed himself as a man wronged, as if his family's grief was a personal attack. Julie, on the other hand, was the picture of grace. She posted a heartfelt tribute describing Nico as the purest, sweetest soul, a loving husband, brother, and uncle. She praised his kindness and creativity, writing, "His legacy of laughter and generosity will live on. No shade, no drama, no blame, just love." And that contrast spoke volumes. Meanwhile, Brian was online preaching about how he left it all in God's hands while accusing Julie of standing in the way of divine truth. He claimed she lied about him in her book and that now God himself had delivered an $8.8 million verdict. Except the court hadn't actually said that yet. Julie still had time to respond, but Brian was too busy playing judge and jury on Instagram to notice. The internet immediately called him out for one thing above all: the date, October 16th, Nico's birthday. People couldn't believe that Brian didn't just post. He posted that. A gloating victory video about money on the day that should have been about his late child? Did he forget what day it was? One fan wrote. Or did he post it on purpose? The consensus online was brutal. No one believed it was a coincidence, especially because Brian's relationship with Nico had already been public and painful. During his lifetime, Nico had repeatedly spoken about his dad online, and none of it was flattering. In one post, Nico responded to Brian calling his biological kids evil, saying, "That's wild. The guy who made me clean his used condoms at 15 before his girlfriend came home is calling me evil." Another tweet read, "When I was dying in the hospital, I just wanted him to tell me he loved me. He said he couldn't." The heartbreak was gut-wrenching. Nico wrote that he felt embarrassed by how things ended with his father, but still loved him, still hoped for reconciliation. Those words haunted fans long after his passing. So seeing Brian, years later, brag about punishing Nico's mother, it felt like cruelty wrapped in narcissism. Especially since Nico had already told the world that his father forged documents, abandoned them, and disowned his sisters. He'd called out the hypocrisy of a man who preaches about loving God while cutting off his own children. And if that wasn't enough, Brian's surviving son, Brian Jr., finally broke his silence. He posted a scathing response saying he tried to stay quiet and mature but had reached his limit. "What's going on with my dad right now?" he wrote. "If y'all don't see it, you're blind." This is a very hurt, emotionally unavailable, and unintelligent man who still hasn't processed the death of his own mother. To post that on my late brother's birthday is evil. He said he was done protecting his father and hinted that there are secrets he could expose, dark things he and Nico both took to their graves. "Who are you trying to hurt?" he asked. "Because it's not God. It's me. It's my mother. It's our family." That message hit like thunder. Fans flooded the comments, calling Brian heartless and beyond redemption. His reputation, already shaky, fell off a cliff. But here's where things get even more layered. Some people defended him, a small, quiet group that claimed he did try to contact Nico. They pointed to that voicemail as proof. He reached out, she blocked him, they said. But skeptics weren't convinced. They argued that we're only hearing one side, and Brian has a history of manipulating narratives to paint himself as the victim. Many believe that voicemail might have been recorded after provocation, just another setup in his pattern of emotional warfare. And honestly, that pattern's hard to ignore. For years, Brian's been accused of weaponizing his faith and his image to justify cruelty. Remember when he disowned his biological children publicly and called his stepdaughter his only real daughter? Or when he implied his older kids were born of sin and that cutting them off was necessary for peace? Fans have watched this man rewrite his family history in real time, erasing, replacing, and now suing. And still, he acts like it's all God's will. Every attack, every insult, every self-inflicted feud wrapped in scripture and self-praise. The thing is, karma doesn't care about court filings. You can win a lawsuit and still lose your humanity. Because while Brian was busy celebrating in the countryside, Julie was already moving in silence. She reportedly shared a screenshot of their court docket, clearly marked pending, to remind everyone that the case wasn't final. A subtle but powerful clapback. She didn't need to rant. One post shut down his whole narrative. And here's the part Brian didn't see coming. Julie might be planning to countersue. Sources say she's consulting new lawyers and gathering receipts, real ones. Because if it's proven that Brian exaggerated his victory to defame her again, it could backfire big time. He might have just opened the door to another legal nightmare. The irony? He's been crying about being defamed while doing the very same thing, using social media to drag his ex-wife, his dead son's mother, on his son's birthday. Let that sink in. This isn't about money anymore. It's about legacy. And right now, Brian McKnight's legacy looks like ashes. The man who once sang about love and soul is now trending for lawsuits, bitterness, and broken family ties. He went from serenades to subpoenas, from wedding songs to court statements. People online are calling him the R&B villain of the decade. Because when your own children publicly call you cold, when your late son's memory is tied to pain, when your surviving son says you're emotionally broken, there's no album, no Grammy, no settlement that can fix that. Brian said, "The only judgment that matters is God's." But if you ask the internet, Judgment Day is already here. And no matter how much he gloats about $8.8 million, the one thing he can't buy back is respect. The saddest part? Nico once said he still loved his father, still wanted peace, still wanted one last group hug. And now all that's left is silence, the kind even God might not be able to fill.